are not going to get to be here today, but just after talking about how art does wash away from the soul the dust of everyday life and get some of this funk off of us, I thought we would listen. I've highlighted a few things about Lillian Genth. I did a little bit of research on her, and I didn't really do that much with Sargent because I just didn't have time, honestly. But I wanted to share a couple of things I learned about Lillian and get some lessons from her life and how she created. There's not a lot there, but a little bit. I want to find out who's painting this morning. If you're finished, where you are with the study. Okay, Teresa's painting. Norma, you're painting. Denise is painting. Okay.
I'm going to paint after.
Paint
I like listening. I just need to do her head. I just got to get her head together.
And that's
so
my
next.
I can
do that on my own.
Okay, that's my next question, because I have about 4 segments in the video today. It's a shorter video. Basically, I have your preparation hints, and those are real quick. I have correcting the head, which I did several times. So you'll see some tips from while I was working on the head. I have a pretty long segment on glazing the fabric. So I want to show you how I did that with the prints and how I lightened up some areas on the fabric and also reapplied the highlights to the fabric. So I did learn some things about the fabric. And then I have, at the very end, I have a little tip on using a phone app to put your work side by side. And I want to show you a little bit about that. So those are kind of that's kind of what I had in mind to do today. Some working, some are not. I also want to find out what your takeaways were from this study. What do you think? And think about that while we're talking and looking at the art, looking at the video segments, if you want to jot down a couple of things. Because I think we're all probably learning different things. I got some new color mixtures that I have never used before. I found out a little bit more solidifying about doing small heads, just some different things that I thought would be great for us to discuss during this 2-hour session, 2.5-hour session. If you have to slip away, I know some have obligations. Don't feel funny about that. Just wave and let us know you've got to go. I know Carol has her grandchildren today, and she's going to try to pop in and out. So there may be some folks just kind of jumping in and out. Let me first of all, and if you're getting your stuff ready, why don't I do this? Why don't I go ahead and play this first segment for those of you who will be painting? And it's only about 2 minutes, and it's just some reminders for setting up your work area and how the colors I mixed. Then I'll pause it while you finish getting things ready, and I'll share a few things from Lillian's, from the things about Lillian. Any questions or thoughts before I do that? Okay, I'm going to share the screen. I think I'm going to do a little bit better this time. And if you'll just wave to me and let me make sure I can hear the audio, because I had to reset something last time for you to hear audio. Where did that go? Well, let's just try it and see if you can hear it. Wait a minute, I got to share, don't I? Okay. Can you hear it? Somebody wave if you can hear it.
Yes.
You can hear, okay.
I cannot.
Hold on, let me pause it. Somebody can't hear?
Are you talking about hearing you or hearing the video?
Hearing the video. Can you hear the video?
No.
No.
All right, hold on. Let's see. Something's gotten reset here, so let me see. Oh, I see what it is. Hold on. Maybe it's that. Let me try it again and see if you can hear. Can you hear? No. Okay, hold on.
No.
Oh, here it is, more, I think. Share computer sound. I knew there was another setting that I didn't have. All right, let me go back. Sorry about that, guys. Technical stuff continually challenges me.
Challenges you?
Okay, here we go. Now let me know. Give me a thumbs up if you hear it here in a second. I have mixed up the same colors I've been using all along, the flesh colors, the yellow, ochre, and white. And I also have some burnt sienna and Prussian blue and some of the shadow colors that are left over from my last session. I poured out some medium because I'm going to be glazing a couple of areas, and I'm going to oil in the painting as I do each time. I've also pulled up on the monitor some side-by-sides of a close-up of her and the full comparison of the two, and then also the grayscale images. So I'm going to be working from these today, and I made some notes as to what I want to work on today. I spent just a few minutes before I did anything making a decision on what I want to do today in this final session. I'm going to correct the face because I feel like her face is important to me. I repaint it, but the tilt is off, and so I can tell that by putting them side by side. I can bring the forehead forward a little bit more. She is the same width. Her hair and the front of her face are the same width from her hairline to her chin. All right, I'm going to go back to and just leave it paused on this screen of, if I can get it to
Mixed up the same colors I've been using all along, the flesh colors, the yellow ochre.
I'll just pause it there. So if you are mixing colors, if you're going to be working on the head, if you're going to be working on the dress, you'll just need to use some pure color and some glaze for that. Any questions on that? So I'll let you guys be getting that stuff ready, that those of you who are painting, while I talk about Lillian a little bit. Everybody's good? Okay. One of the things that I thought about her, of course, she was born in 1876, and she lived to 1953. So she lived in a time where it was mostly men painting, mostly men who received any kind of recognition. She was an American Impressionist painter, and I got this from a couple of different sources. One of these was from the Cheekwood site, because they featured her painting a couple of years ago in an exhibit there of 5 women artists. So some of this is from Cheekwood. She studied under Whistler, James McNeill Whistler, for a year. And so you can see some of his influence in her tonal qualities, that she has lots of good light. And that was what drew me to this painting in the first place, was the light qualities of it. She was the youngest woman ever elected to the National Academy of Design as an associate. Back then, that was all men. That was in 1908. She was elected as an associate to that National Academy. Let's see, it talks a little bit about that painting. I'll come back to that. It said she was best known for her paintings of female nudes in landscapes. She painted at her home in the Berkshires. I'm not sure how you say that. Later in her career, 1928, she abandoned that subject. She quit painting nudes, just abruptly. She just stopped. I read somewhere later that it was said that she became very religious, and that may have been one of the reasons why she stopped painting the nudes, that she received some criticism from the church. But she said that, another writer noted that she was such a strong-willed woman that he doubted that she would let somebody discourage her that way from something she felt really passionate about. But you do see that she moved into different kinds of paintings, which is what we do sometimes. We go for a season painting one thing, and then you get tired of that and you move into painting something else. So I thought we could all relate to her on that level. It says Lillian Genth is an anomaly in the history of American art. For an artist to receive so much attention, both critical and public, during her career, and then to fall into almost complete obscurity is difficult to understand. How is it that an artist who received major national and international awards and citations, who was included in over 230 exhibitions over a 30-year period, can become a mere footnote in the history of American art? Because I would say that none of you have ever heard from her until I brought her up, heard of her. And I only have because I adore that painting at Cheekwood, and I used to have a membership and visit Cheekwood a lot. So, you know, it is odd that somebody that's so talented like that just falls off the radar. It says she was born in Philadelphia. She studied at the Pennsylvania School of Design for Women, which is now the Moore College of Art, and then studied for a year with Whistler in Paris. His focus was on female nudes in pastoral settings. And so this likely influenced her to turn in 1906 from painting landscapes to begin to include nudes in her landscapes. But then some 8 years later, she issued a press release to announce her decision to discontinue painting nudes. It was a big deal. I'm not going to paint those anymore. So kind of interesting. You wonder what happened to make her change her course there. When asked about her reasoning for changing her subjects, she simply said, people live in cycles. People live in cycles. It says she lived in New York City for the rest of her life. She was awarded a number of prestigious art prizes beginning in 1904. Her work is part of collections in the National Gallery in Washington, the Carnegie Institute in Pittsburgh. You can read about all that. There's a list. The Metropolitan Museum, which is quite a, hold on, let me mute that. The Metropolitan Museum is quite a feat to be able to have work there. And she was considered one of the most successful landscape and figurative painters of her lifetime. Let me see if there's any other highlights here. It says she maintained 2 residences, one in New York and one in the mountains of Connecticut. Her estate was called Hermit Cliff. Hermit Cliff. It was on 80 acres of virgin woodland, and she was able to pose her models outdoors away from prying eyes. In addition to the nude compositions, she painted attractive young women in domestic settings and in sunlit gardens. Now, it's interesting because when you look for her work, it's very hard to find any good images of her work. You see some, but they're very dark and dreary. So I'm sure if we were to go to museums and find the real paintings, we would see how different they are.
Christy, does she have anything else at Cheekwood besides this one painting?
Not that I know of. And Cheekwood is really funny. I've had a love-hate relationship with Cheekwood over the years. Back in the 90s, they had some amazing exhibits. They had Andrew Wyeth exhibit there, and they had a European masterpiece exhibit there at one time. They were always really funny, no photography, no getting near the paintings. They wouldn't even have images of the paintings because I was a, eager art student during that time, and I wanted to have pictures of these to take with me to look at and study and remember. And they were just very adamant about no photography. So that's when I learned to carry my little camera. I was even considering cutting a hole in my purse and arranging my lens so that I could take a picture through my purse without the guards coming and slapping my hands.
Where is Cheekwood? Where is it?
Cheekwood is in Belmead. It's a botanic. It used to be called Botanical Gardens, but they don't have their botanical hall anymore, I don't think. It's a beautiful man.
Belmead. Where's Belmead? You know I'm new in this area. So.
Yeah, it's just out west. If you go out West End all the way out, just look it up, Cheekwood Gardens, and it's a beautiful place, and they do have some lovely art there. I don't know if this one is hanging. You could call and find out because it is part of their permanent collection. I would love for us to take a field trip, take our paintings with us, and compare and see, you know, maybe make some color notes if it is still there. So that may be something I do later on in the summer or fall, is to try to take a trip there. So anyway, that's all I'll say about her. There's a little bit more. I'll attach this article in my next little recap of the class today. She traveled a whole lot, and I loved that she traveled alone. I don't know if she was married. It did not say, but she was a courageous woman in that day to travel on her own, to take her paints with her. So she was determined to do what she did. And I love that.
What is her last name? I'm sorry.
Genth, Genth.
And I wonder would she be in the libraries? That might be a good place to look.
There is, yes, there is, there were several resources that they used. There's a, let's see, an article, and I looked it up, but you had to join this website. There's an article in a magazine that was printed in 1927, I think. And it'll be in the notes if you want to go further and look that up on her. I was busy last night and I didn't want to join and subscribe to this, whatever this was. I didn't have time to research it, but there is some information on her out there. But I think just her drive to do art and her perseverance through criticisms. It takes a thick skin to do art. So I think just we can definitely learn from that. And I think she's a wonderful painter. I just love this painting. I sympathize with her now after doing that head. I still, I have my final painting down here for you guys to see, but the head is still too big. Hey, Amy.
Hi, I got something to show. I don't know if you can do it. You said her name was Lillian?
Uh-huh.
There, I don't know if you can see. I was trying to show you. There's the dark picture. I don't know.
Yeah.
I didn't know if they wanted to see.
Yeah, text that to me, Amy, if you don't mind. Do a screenshot of it or something, and I'll include it in my recap. I'm going to try to find a few more of her paintings and send those to y'all. I'll just send you a little Lillian email later and let you see some of her other work.
I'd love to see her land.
Okay. That's on a Wikipedia.
Okay.
And the one I'm sending you will be Depths of the Woods. It was from 1900 to 1910, and it's at the Smithsonian American Art Museum.
Cool.
The picture I'm going to send you.
Awesome. Thank you. So we studied two men and a woman, and I wasn't really thinking about that, but I'm glad we were able to include. We studied Raphael, who was way back, Sargent, who was not late 1800s, early 1900, and Lillian. We kind of worked our way forward. And then these next few color studies that we're going to do over the next 3 weeks are from living painters. And they will just be studies. We will not be selling those or exhibiting them. So encourage you to get a sketchbook or something if you want to just do canvas paper or something to do those little studies on. All right, I know, let's see, at least 2 or 3 or 4 of you guys are painting this morning. So I'm going to go ahead and start off with my correcting of the head. What else do you guys need? Is what I'm going to cover going to work for you? The glazing the dress. Thank you, Amy.
That's what I need.
Okay, glazing the dress. Does anybody need the head?
Yeah.
Is anybody working on the head? You do, Jackie? That'll be in the video too, so I may fast forward through that if nobody's really stuck. My head is going to be correcting problems that are different from yours. So that's another thing that I think will probably not be beneficial to everybody. But let me just let it play for just a minute. And any questions about color mixing at this point? Okay, this is an important part here too. I want to let you see that I did write down what I wanted to work on, so I'm going to let you hear that little segment. Did I share it? No, I did not. I need to share it. I'll get it together here in a minute. Maybe. All right, here we go.
9 by 12 copy of a life-size painting. In reality, she used a huge canvas, so it's a different animal to paint. It's so small. Also, we'll be working on the dress and glazing in the flowers and the prints on the dress. The area that is most vivid is down there close to the flower pot, the brass pot, and in the front of her dress on the bottom. The rest, I'm going to be careful not to make these flowers too bright. It's a bit darker. And lastly, I'll brighten the flowers in a couple of areas, not too much. I don't want to bring too much attention to those flowers. They are really, there's a beautiful area of permanent rose just opposite of the shade right here that I might make a little bit brighter. And I'm going to include a little bit more, some of those little fallen flowers on the tabletop, and a little bit more work in this area. So those 4 things are my plan for today, and I'm going to try not to get bogged down with overworking this. It's been a great study. I also stopped and got a rag. I got my apron on, got the trash can close by, and some paper towels. I'm keeping my list right here so that I can stay on task with what I want to do and not get sidetracked. There's a lot of preparation that I fail to do sometimes, and I pay the price. That's one of the things with working in oil that makes it a little more challenging. If you're just doing pastels, you can just jump right out here and paint. I also grabbed a little bit of a oxide green or chromium green instead of the consistent colors that I've already been working with. So resist that temptation. I want to stay consistent with the colors I'm already using. So I did mix up the Prussian blue and yellow ochre so that I can stay consistent. Now, that is too green. So I have to remember I'm in the shadow zone of the top of her head here. So I want to make sure I don't get things too light. Her whole forehead is in shadow. And I also don't want to get this head too wide again. I've already done that once. So, but I know it needs to tilt forward more. So I'm going to try to correct that. Further out with.
I'm going to fast forward through some of this. Here it is a little bit closer, but I wanted to I don't know if you guys struggled
I've come around
with how the tilt of that head. There is something in our brain that wants to write things when they're tilted. So we'll if the face is tilted, then I'll constantly be pulling the eyes this way to try to level them out. And so I can't tell you how many times I had to put that forehead back in and push it down further to make her head tilt right. I just did that over and over, and I still don't have it 100% right. But I wanted you to see some of my brush strokes on the face, because I don't know. I know, Denise, with you using pencils, I know there's a real temptation to just draw and outline this face and color it in. And I really used just big, bold masses as I was painting it. So let me see if I can move it over to that segment. And I kept going back to the shade behind it to correct the profile of the face. And I think that's important. There's a big blob for her eye. I didn't really worry about doing any details to start with, but I completely repaint this face again after the next morning after it dries, because it still doesn't look like her. I get the tilt a little bit better. Well, let me start it right there where I start to put in some bold strokes.
And see if I can make a pretty peachy color for here. Make them too big, and then you got to go back in and cut them back down. Told you I was determined to get this pretty orangey color in the last video. Well, I'm still determined.
Did you guys struggle with this part of her face? because you get those lines in, that light playing around her, under her eye and across her cheek. I must have painted that 20 times. It would be too harsh. Then it would be too, then I'd blend it out. It'd be too soft. I mean, I just went back and forth with this. You can still see when I put it in here that her nose is too big. There's too much space between that orange mark and the profile of her nose right there. So this was an area that I can't tell you how many times, but here's the rub. I was determined to make her face sweeter and more like this expression on her. Was that important? Because this is in my sketchbook. It's going to be closed up. Nobody's probably going to see it. It was important to me. And that's all that mattered for me. It was only important to me. And like I said in the video several times, you may have wanted to learn fabric. So the face did not matter to you. It's not, we all have different goals and different ideas of what's important as you paint this. Again, study. We're learning some different things together, but separately, because we're all, doing different things. Let me fast forward it a little. So here I go back in there and I put just the blocks of light again, because that's my best way of trying to work in a planes of the face fashion. Instead of outlining and coloring book, I'm trying to carve out the front plane, the side plane, the top plane as much as I can with a bold stroke. So I did want you to see that. You can later, if you want to watch this and hear what I'm saying, it looks really bad again. So it's scary to go back into a face that's somewhat done and totally paint all this back into it again. But to just kind of show you, I had to readjust the hair. I had the size of the hair off, and I measured height to width. And so there is where I went ahead and blended a little bit of that. Let me let that play out.
Keep losing it. Right here. I'll see a little bit of it right here at the base of that pretty red color. Still keep losing the red color. I put it in and then I take it out. Here.
Be bold with your colors. That's important.
Here. These are little fireflies of glow that are so pretty.
All right, so let me fast forward. I'm going to come back to that. That's at 18. I work on the face again. I let it dry, and this is what it looked like that night after I finished. When I got up the next morning and looked at it, because of this light stroke, can y'all see my cursor right there? Because of this light stroke, she looked like her eyes were swollen, puffy. And I didn't like that. Her lips were too dark. They're in the right place, but they're too dark. Her nose is too long. So there were some things that were better, but they still were not right. So I rework it here. I get in a little bit closer here. The video is pretty blurred for some reason, but I'm putting that orange spot back in and that light spot for the 25th time. And I mixed up some softer pink. Now, once you have lips, if the lips are in the right place and they're dry, you can just scumble a little warmer, prettier color over the top of that dry paint. You already have a little pattern in place. So your first estimate, or your first or second or third or 25th stroke on there, even if it's the wrong color, if it's in the right place, stop and let it dry, and then go back later and correct the color on it. Because that's one of the things that I kept going back and forth. It was all so wet that I'd put one spot in and then I'd try to correct it and I'd mess it up. So once the paint's dry, you can come back in there and you can put the correct value on it. I don't know if you can see it. I don't know why my video is so blurred here, but I do end up softening, getting everything more in the right place. It looks more like her now in this stage. I felt better about it. And here at the very end, I put these bold strokes back in. Let me see. Whoops. Let me let that play for a second and let you see when I lay those in. That is burnt sienna and a little Prussian blue.
My biggest problem on this head was I forgot to measure, and the features, I got so busy thinking I had it right, it was kind of probably a little bit of cockiness on my part. Maybe not, maybe I just forgot to check. That's easy to do. So her eyebrows are the halfway point. So from here to her brow is the same as brow to her chin. So I have the features right. I had the eyes up one whole eye. They were up here before. So I had to fix that. And there is still a darker brow ridge up here. There it goes. Ooh, I'm finally getting it.
You don't know how many times I tried.
I may look at it again later and doubt myself, but feels like I'm getting a lot closer. And I've been stubborn enough, just enough to want to keep doing this.
All right. So I went back, and although these bold strokes are they're too strong, they were finally in the right place. And they were the things that I needed to make it look like her. And you see they're only like 1, 2, 3. I put a little dark mark right at the corner of her mouth, which sort of anchored her mouth a little bit because it's kind of mushy. And then there's a real dark line under her chin. I must have put that in 10 times.
So that's Prussian blue and burnt sienna?
It's burnt sienna with a speck of Prussian blue in it.
Okay.
Just to get that nice dark orangey color. Burnt sienna alone is too red, so it needed just a little Prussian blue to get in there. I took, after this video was done, I went and got one of those little tiny mops and I softened these hard lines out a bit. But I felt pretty good. I fixed the point of her nose. I think I show that on here, to where her nose is not so pointy and the shape of it is a little bit more correct. But you do just have to lay the brush down at some point because you'll drive yourself crazy.
Yeah.
And it's not a commission. It's not something that I have to get right. So any comments or troubles or thoughts that you have about the face or the head? And I'll move on to the glazing of the dress. If you don't have any.
So narrowing the head a little bit is just going around it with color to kind of, instead of trying to change the whole thing, just kind of go around the head to push it in, because mine is like this.
Yes.
I'm gonna bring it in.
And I'll tell you, my head is still too big on her when I look at her from across the room. When you look at it here, it doesn't look like it, but it's only because my image is smaller than this one. So it looks okay. And I was working on it like this, zoomed in. So you're working on this size of a head without looking at the whole. When you zoom back, you're like, oh, dang, her head is too big for the body. So you know, there's so many things. You got to remember you're doing a landscape, a still life, a full-length figure in this painting. So give yourself lots of kudos. If you get one thing good on it, you just have a little party and dance about that one thing that you got good on it, you know, because there's a lot of stuff going on. And I just mixed up that yellow ochre and white, Jackie, and I kept going in. On last week's video, you see me just take it and totally carve off the whole front of her face with that yellow ochre and white. I could do that again and try to make this head even a little bit smaller. She's very dainty and soft, and her head is small. So having a large head really takes away from this painting some. Any other questions or thoughts about the head, or anything you want to share that you struggled with or had success with? All right, I'm going to go on to the glazing segment. One thing you'll note about this, and a lot of you that sent me your pictures, your dress is very dark. And so parts of what I'm going to show you on here, and it's about a 20-minute segment, so I'm not sure if I'll play it all. I might go ahead and play it all, just you can be painting while I'm playing it if you want to, but a lot of what I'm doing is mixing up a value 1 or 2 degrees lighter and just dragging it over the top of the dress in the areas that are too dark. So you'll see me like right here by her arm, by the crook of her arm, and you see that her waistline is too low. It's making her look really frumpy. So at some point in here, I remember to bring the waistline back up here. I don't know how I got down here even with her elbow, but her waistline is supposed to be up here, and that changes the look of it quite a bit. So lightening the dark shadowed areas. I did oil in this painting before I started, so that when I start glazing those flowers in, I'm laying those in a little pool of glaze already. So it's not going on hard and stiff like a direct painting. And Denise, or those who are working in, Denise, are you still on here? I'm working on here. Yes, you're here. There you are. My gallery's tiny. I know it's a little different for you if you're not working in oils. So let me go ahead and just let that play. But I think it'll help you because I lay it in really thin at first, those little flowers. They're very faint and thin. And then I go back and put a little brighter color on top of that little thin pool. And then I take a clean brush and wiggle it in. That way the flowers don't look like they're standing on top of the fabric. So I'll let you watch this part and wave at me or something if you have a question in the midst, and I'll stop it.
Now using these synthetic filberts and a mongoose. These are small sizes again for this small painting. It's a 2 and a 0 on the little filbert. I'm going to try to use mostly just clean color, no color with white in it for this glazing. And I'm just going to start with the darker notes that I see. And I'll go back over that with a little bit brighter red. But I don't want these marks to be, I'd like to use a lot of medium with them. So I don't want them to be real solid marks. I'd rather have them, in fact, if they get too solid, I'm going to mix in some medium with them so that they aren't so opaque. I want these to be kind of see-through here. Mix a little bit more medium there. There's some here. And these can be see-through. Just don't overshoot these. A little bit of feeling of the color. So this is mostly medium right here with just a little bit of the red left on my brush. Just to add a little bit of color in there. Let's see here. This is much warmer down here under her hand, so I still may need to go in there and put some light back in there because it's gotten too dark. Assess these areas of color, and there's vermilion. And again, it's better if you'll start off with more medium and just kind of stain the area first. Much easier to go back in there later and pop a little bit of a brighter color in on top. So start with medium and a little color. And then you can move it. It's darker as you go down here on the dress, so there's a little blue in that. I think Prussian blue is transparent. I have not looked on the tube, but I'm pretty sure. And this is a good way to work when you're painting gold. A lot of things is if you'll put like the duller version or a little bit darker underneath it, and then go back in and pop the color just real strategically so you're not putting color everywhere. Because that's a temptation. This color's really pretty and it's easy to go crazy with it. But you'll have a big mess here if you do that. It'll just be, the dots will take away all the beauty. And it's easy to lose your way here on where the heck you are on these patterns. Some right here. All right, this is a much brighter over here, so I may glaze a little bit, just thin layer of color right here just to brighten that area up. Also some warm tone right down in here. I can glaze some warmer color back in there. Now I'm going to switch to, I'm going to use the same brush, but I've got a little pile of a lavender color mixed up because I can see that pretty strong in a couple places. I probably should have put that on first, but I really like it. It's really pretty. That's a little too bright, but I can tone it down. Anywhere else? Let's see. A couple places here maybe. I've already placed it on her shoulder. All right, and then there's some peachy color, which I had left over from working on the face. So I'm gonna glaze some of that here. Actually, I should have done that before I put the red, but that's okay. I wanna lighten that a little bit. It's too dark. Of this orange down here. It's really pretty. It's sort of a little bit like, it may be too light, but it's a little bit, whoops, a little bit like the skin tone. It's kind of mimicked down here in the dress. It's really pretty right there. Up there, I'm going kind of crazy with it, so I probably better settle down. Ooh, I don't know about all that.
Look how outlined that book is. I have to repair that. All that dark around that book.
I'll go back in here and tone it down just a bit. It's hard to tell on your palette what this is going to look like on the dress. It's really bright. And the dress is still in shadow, so I don't want to overdo that. I did want to lighten some of this because it's too dark right here. So maybe let's see what happens if I scumble some of that color. I have to use a darker version of it. It's way too light to go over this shadow. It needs to be like, look, let's see, that's too strong. So I need a, not a soft mongoose, but a ivory here. Let me see if I can just move that around a bit, because this is a dry area other than the medium that's on it. Yeah, that helped some. It just warmed it up. Anywhere else that I have things too dark, I want to come in and, because when things get really dark, they look like a hole. Look like there's a hole in the dress or a hole in the painting. So I'm using some orange with a little bit of blue in it because the orange is too bright. Remember, this is shadow. Just to knock that down a bit. That was too light. And also here, this is too dark. These were areas I needed to fix. Around the book, it looks too outlined. I'm just scumbling over the top, really, trying to lighten these dark areas. Oh, what did do here, let's see. That's some of that red. I can just paint it in. Because it's a glaze, you can kind of move it around pretty easily. Still feels really dark in here. There's a real pretty fold that comes right out of her thumb here. And then the dress is really kind of blowing this way. It's back in, but I'm going to go ahead and put some green in right now. Glazing that. Let's see, I'm going to use the Mongoose long flat.
So those of you who are working on glazing this dress right now, you see that I started putting some red in, and then I realized that my areas of the dress were really dark. So I ended up going back and correcting some of those areas first by scumbling, in some cases, the opposite color over, like the area that was too blue, I put more of an orangey color, just kind of drug it over the top, not really covering it completely, but giving it a little bit lighter. This is a segment that nobody in workshops, nobody really ever covered, because they would always do a demo for about 2 or 3 hours of wet into wet and then left. And so they did never come back with a dry painting and show how do you fix without totally repainting the whole thing. Then you end up with some of the same problems, but to just go back over your dry paint, having that little bit of medium on there gives you a nice slick surface, but you also can just drag in increments a little bit of color over it. And you see how it started to soften. It's still too dark under her hand. So I end up correcting that all under her hand. And I have a little short segment that I'll show you where I work on the arm, because the arm is still too blotchy and the hand is indistinct. And I know from some of the shots that you guys sent me that you struggled a little bit with the hand and the arm. So I want to show you that little segment as well. But this next part I think is really helpful on glazing the flowers. I go back with the green and I'll just show you how I work that in. So let me put that on. Any questions at this point? Okay.
Mongoose brush. And I have plenty of green mixed up, so that kind of acts as an anchor. Help me see where I'm going. I'm going to deposit it, and then I'm going to come back with a smaller brush and move it around a little bit.
This is a pretty thin mixture that I'm using, a lot of medium in it.
Most of these marks are at an angle, especially on this green.
It's Prussian blue and yellow ochre if you missed that.
That helps lighten that a little right there. There's green here, 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 a little over here. This is at the top of the book here. Then there's that, and there's this, and there's some down here. So I guess that's about it. And who knows, this might have gone on better to have painted it wet and wet. It just made sense to me to try to glaze it on later, because that way I could get the whole composition of the dress down and then go back in and put the pattern in on top. I'm switching back to the red, because there's some really bold cad red pieces in here. I'm going to try to lay those on the top of the places where I already put some red, like here. Little pieces. Then I'm going to move these around with a brush. Let's see, under there.
You notice I'm paying attention to where these splotches go. I'm not just randomly throwing them in. People spend a lot of time on designing fabric and even sewing it to make sure that things are balanced. And
Just over from the book, it's another little note.
if you make it up, it'll be evident. If you just start throwing stuff in there every which way, it'll probably be evident that there's something off.
Let me go ahead and adjust this book a little more.
While I have the
Some
red on
color
there.
over it. These notes were too bright on the book, so they needed to be toned down. This feels a lot like kindergarten. Because these are really just abstract shapes.
And you see I'm moving around a lot with this. I'm not just doing one little segment. I'm trying to get that
All
rhythm.
right, they're standing out like a sore thumb now, so the next step would be to come back in here with a softer brush. What brush do we want? I'm gonna try a sable that's pretty soft but long. And I'm just wet it with a little bit of turp. And I'm gonna come back in here and just kind of zigzag the edges of these patterns to soften them in a little so they're not standing out so much. Yeah, I like that. And I'm watching what I'm doing. Again, if you make things up, it's usually evident that you've made up strokes and patterns. And because there is medium on here, this is moving around really nice, and I can blur it a little. Yeah, this Kolinsky sable, it's a 4, is working really nice for this. And whatever I have left on it, I'm just going to move it over, and feels like, let's see, seems like this may be too. This waist may be too low.
I just figured this out.
Yeah,
Duh.
it's doesn't move down. So let me correct that. See, it's really easy to get off with your drawing. We can just do it in a heartbeat here. So I'm going to move that waist up. It looks much better, being more high-waisted on her. Change brushes. What happens is you use the same brush for everything and you end up with the mud again. All right, so the waist drops from about here. There we go. That's better. Get back to my little patterns here. Cleaning my brush. Again, I'm using the Kolinsky sable. And I want to just wiggle these patterns in. I'm wiping my brush. Matter of fact, I need a new paper towel. This is kind of a fun part. Keep your brushes clean. If you just paint this stuff in and leave it, it looks kind of pasted on. Doesn't look like it really is part of the fabric. So I think this is really an important step. Everything feels like it goes this way, which is a real natural. If you're right-handed, that's a real natural way to make a stroke. Hand really disappears right here with the book, so I need to work on that book some more, but see, I've gotten sidetracked. Now, I want to stop just for a minute to put in some more bold dappled light on her.
Let me stop there for a sec. So you see the importance of that sable and wiping your brush constantly in between every wiggle, wipe, wiggle, wipe. Because if not, you're just going to have really big, thick, you know, and if you don't use medium, you've got thick, opaque paint that you're laying on top of this dress, and it will look like it's not a part of the fabric. So when you see this in life, I could probably glaze back over the entire dress again to kind of settle those patterns down one more time. But I'm pretty much done with it. You know, it's worn out its welcome for me. I've worn myself out with it. I am much happier when I work on the arms, so I do want to show you that segment in a minute. It's still rather blotchy, so when I lay this dappled light back over on this next part, and I'm doing all this wet and wet, so it's not a big deal. Anything that, because you've got the underpainting underneath it, you don't have to worry too much about losing the whole thing. There's no way that I could have gotten all this in one session, I don't think. I would have ended up with a big muddy mess. And a lot of pinks, because if I laid that red on top of wet, you know, medium blue or medium light, it would have turned into pink. Maybe somebody could do it, but I needed to do it this way. Any thoughts or any questions about glazing the patterns? Yeah, Jackie.
So, okay, so my painting is dark, right? So I guess I would have to bring that lighter color in. Do I do the whole thing over, or can I just go in little, I can probably go in little areas and kind of, you know, kind of blend it in and do the glazing, just kind of do it over a little bit. Do I do it while it's wet or dry, or what do you think? What thoughts on that?
If you, I'll look at yours and definitely give you a good critique, but I would say if you have a lot of thick paint, red can take up to 2 weeks to dry. So if you've painted a lot of red on there and it's sopping wet, I probably wouldn't try to get in there and start lightening areas around the red, because you're going to end up with a lot of pink. You know, it's going to kind of bleed on you. So I might wait till it's dry, and then I always like to just go back in increments and sort of scumble over the top, you know, see if I can carve things back down. These are all learning things, learning curves. You see that I you know, regressed a couple of times. I started putting the red in, and then I ended up going back and lightening the dress before I laid the patterns on. So that was my learning curve, is I should have corrected all the values in the dress first, and then you can still lay the glaze on top of that unless you've painted real heavily. It's still a little bit strong. It kind of looks like Christmas to me. The dress does, with all the red and green. She may have used some Viridian in those greens, because it looks, I just mixed the Prussian blue and yellow ochre, but it looks in some places like a little bit of a blue green, like the Viridian color down, especially down on the right under the book.
Okay.
How about you, Denise, with the pastel? How's that going? Let me look at yours.
Well, the paper is still a struggle, but it was the only blue sheet that I had, so I used it. But I am having to, I think I'm having to get all the values in, just like you are with the paint, and lay the flowers lightly on top of it. It's a struggle because it doesn't mix as well.
Mm-hmm.
But because of this paper, if it were a different paper, it would be a different story. I don't know what this paper is. I just know I don't want any more of it. But anyway, I'm pretty much doing what you're doing.
Okay.
I tried to lay the flowers in too early, and I made a mess. So,
well, remember, I'm glad you said that, because remember that the first thing you see is mostly the last thing you paint a lot of times. So when you look at this, you love the patterns of this dress. I mean, the dress is so beautiful, the light patterns on it and the colors. And so we immediately want to jump in there and start doing the dress too soon. Now, Jackie, you sent me yours, and it looks beautiful. I think, you know, you can also make the decision that you want this dress to be a darker dress. It doesn't have to be that light, but I do think your reds and stuff don't look too thick. Like, so you may be able to get in there in a little area. And when you're mixing up a color, you noticed I put that lavender there on the front.
Yeah.
Be brighter, because, and I do this a lot on her face, because my shadow colors on her face had gotten muddy, particularly on her forehead. And right here between her eyes had gotten really muddy. So when it was dry, I could take almost the same value, but a brighter version, like with a little permanent rose in it, you know, just a pinker or oranger version, and drag it over the top and clean up that muddy shadow a little bit. And that's very non-risky, because your paint is dry. Get a little, don't use a soft mushy brush, but use an ivory or a filbert that's a little bit stiffer. Put a tiny speck on, and then just drag it over the top to barely lighten that shadowed area. If you don't like it, get a soft cotton rag and wipe it off. But
well, I'm kind of feeling like you, like I'm kind of ready to move on.
Yeah, yeah. This was a long study.
Yeah, I just want to get her face right. I know it's a little, I just want to do that and work on those flowers a little bit, and I really want to be done with it so I can move on. But I may go back in. It just depends on how I feel. So.
You're right on, girl. And that's the thing is, you know, the artist is the one that decides when you're done, and you don't have to keep, you know, dragging this thing out. So I do want to show you this segment on the arm real quick, because I feel like if I can find it, I forgot to mark where it is. Oh, also the light planes, because those are helpful. I ended up with 4 big light strokes through here, and they were too bold. So I did go back in later and break them up. You see how that light is just kind of dappled. Well, dappled light's tricky, because if you're sitting there with your nose on the painting looking at it, it looks funny. And so you have to go back in there and break it up a little bit, similar to the way I did those, the patterns. So let me let you watch a little bit of me laying that on, see if you have any questions. Wait a minute, what did I do here? Oh, I was fixing the waistband. Don't you think it looked better when I fixed her waistband? Good grief, how did I do that? And I worked on the whole thing without even knowing that I had done that. So, all right. And it's easy to make her look too chubby here. So you gotta watch that. This is yellow ochre and white with a tiny bit of cad yellow in it, because I was trying to brighten it a little bit. And I don't know if it's right or not, but it's too bold. So I have to go back in and fix it. But
the front of the gown by the pot.
that long filbert worked great for this. almost, it's not an Egbert, but it's a really long filbert. That's too light. I have to fix all that.
This stroke is in here. I wasn't going to put it in. I'm going to try it again, see if I can make it work. Seems misplaced to me. Easier to pull up. Some of these are just broken pieces of light.
Let me pause that right there. You see how these three dots right here are a gray-blue mixture first. They're dry. And I think we're going to find this when we do the flower, that if you'll put in a grayed version first, don't go as light as you plan to go. And when you go back and you lay another lighter stroke on top of that, it registers a lot better than if you just put the flat light thing on. It gives it a little bit of depth and dimension to go a little darker first and then gradually lighten your areas of sunlight or whatever. It's the same with a gold pot or something. You don't go right to the light highlight. Like on that brass pot, you need to put raw sienna, yellow ochre, and then some yellow light on top of that, and build it up kind of in a progression. Let me finish that out and show you kind of how I break it up. All right, so here I'm going to work on the arm a little bit, I think. Let's see. No, this is a whole assessment part. Let's see if I can find where I worked on the arm. Well, darn, maybe I didn't put it in here. I might have to post that as a separate little video clip because I did video myself painting the arm and the hand. I did the same thing for that arm and hand. Yep, I didn't put it in here somehow. I went back over it with a bright orange, almost a pure cad orange. When you zoom in on her arm, let's see if there's a zoomed in spot anywhere on here where we can see the original. My shadows for that arm were very muddy and dirty, and I'd lost her knuckles, but my drawing was right on her hand. My original underpainting, my drawing was right. So I went back in there and I put the knuckles back in. You just want to make sure when you go back in there to put some light that is in the middle of a dark section, that it's not too light. Margaret Dyer used to say that when you register a color in a shadowed area, if it jumps, it's wrong. It shouldn't jump out. So I ended up using an almost pure cad orange out of the tube to put along the left of her hand, around her thumb, and on her knuckles. And I'll try to find that little segment and post it for you later. But I cleaned her arm up a lot because it still felt really blotchy to me. And I put some better color on that. So I will share that with you guys. Those of you who are working on the fabric patterns right now, are you having any problems you want to jump in there and ask me a question about? I'm going to show you a little ending segment. Oh. Let me show you here, if nobody's got any questions, let me show you here how I fixed this profile.
My biggest problem on this head was...
I already showed you that. Let's see if I can get back to the profile here. Here it is.
Let's see. Yeah, her nose is too big. So it's like this. Then it's like this. Then it drops from just over from her eye like this.
See how taking that tip off fixed it?
Okay.
It's a little too pointed now, but on a head this small, it's a tiny stroke. It's one tiny stroke that fixes it and makes a difference. Her nose was like it was a little bit flippy uppy at the end. And so it just needed one stroke to kind of knock that down. I did notice, and I say this on the video several times, that you can tell by looking at the close-up of Lillian's painting that the paint is really thick around her head and her face. She went over and over and over that. Peach had suggested that if we wanted to do a head study, 8 by 10 of just her head, but I'm going to tell you, I think it's too blurred to do that. I don't want to do it because I can't see her features. If I could go to Cheekwood and get a good shot of her face up close, I might attempt it. But it's so blurred right there that I think my painting would just be a blur like that. I wouldn't, if it's just to be bigger blurred sections of shapes. So I don't think I'm going to attempt a head study. You want to be able, if you're going to do something large, you want to be able to see the detail on it. So unless you're going to be just really impressionistic and just have everything just be really soft and loose and blocky. Let me show you this phone app. Let's see if I have it big enough here for you to see.
I'm going to pop a tiny bit of light back here just because I like that little glowy look. And a little bit here. And a tiny bit on the top of her chin, right here.
That chin is really square on the front. So as you're working on that, it's flat as it's facing the floor. And that's another thing. I kept making a little round chin, and that stroke right there is just as flat as it can be. So I would draw it and take it out, draw it and take it out. And then there's a strong indentation right under her lip. Remember that this area of the mouth is like a half of an orange peel. Half of an orange, you know, if you just took the orange shell and put it over your mouth right there, it would fit. So that part of her lips is rounded, but then there's that indentation under her chin. So as you're working on that profile, just go back and forth with that, making sure that there's that rhythm. It wraps around. Let's see if you can see my cursor. There's a rhythm right here where the orange peel would go. It wraps around like this. So it's kind of, there's kind of a rhythm right here to make sure you have that lined up. And sometimes you have to do that with your pencil or your paintbrush. It's just kind of see how everything swings together as a whole, because we get so busy working on little bits and pieces that they all become kind of disconnected and they don't rock with the rest of the figure. So there is a definite rhythm. There are 51 seconds here, so I'm gonna let it play out and I'll try to pause it at this app so we can talk about that for a second.
There's some on her neck. Those are little fireflies of light, even though she's in shadow. And that's it.
So I did adjust her, see how her boobs are in my painting? It's almost like she's got one of those push-up bras. And so, sorry, David. And so I'll show you the next screen. I carved some of that off. And this is too bright and contrasty. The real image doesn't look that contrasty, but I just toned that down a little bit because it felt awkward to me. It's like her dress is blowing right there. It may be full. There's a fullness to it. And I also laid that light on her chest on really thick. The yellow light color is on really, really thick. This app, let me see if the next one shows it better, is called Pick Jointer. Hold on, let me let it keep playing so you can see the whole app. I think I have it on here. There it is. All right. So if you have, it's free app on your phone. It's called Pick Jointer Photo Collage, I think. Or there's a ton of collage photo apps. But what it does is it lets you open the app, choose either side by side this way or side by side this way. And then you click on that square and insert your picture, and click and insert your picture. And then you can move the pictures around and make them smaller or larger. And then you see them side by side like this. So this is, while I was working on it out there, instead of going back and opening up Photoshop each time and having to go back in, I would just put it on my phone and then sit there and use my phone to work from. And that really helped me. I just had I would zoom in on the face and have the two side by side and work from it right there next to my easel. So it's a great app. If you want to adjust the picture a little bit before you open it in that app, if you have an iPhone, I think almost all phones have a photo editor. It's not real meticulous like Photoshop, but if you find your picture's registering too dark, you can lighten it a little bit. Just get the little light meter in there and drag it and lighten it a little bit before you take it into the Pic Joiner app. It'll let you save it. If you can't figure out how to save it, just screenshot it. Then you can open it back up in your photos and grayscale it. You've got a couple of options on grayscaling on your phone. Some of them are too contrasty. So just pick one of those, and then you can work from the grayscale image to check your values. So I've been doing that for you guys. I've been opening up in Photoshop, and I'm happy to continue doing that on Fridays on anything you're working on. You don't have to just send me what you're working on in art. Excuse me, but I need to do that for my own benefit to give you a critique. I like to look at it side by side. In fact, I go ahead and put it in there side by side, and I put it in the email, and I do my critique in the email while I'm looking at it for you. I would like to be able to draw on it and show you areas I'm talking about. So I'll have to figure that out when I do the critique for you. Any questions about this, or have any of you guys used any apps like this?
It's PicStitch.
PicStitch. It's the same thing. Okay.
Yeah, I have to.
Okay. It's very helpful, and it's about the only way I know that you can put two pictures side by side on your phone or your iPad. I can also pull them up in preview on my desktop, which is just the photo viewing app. And if I click on each photo individually and then I drag them side by side, I'll screenshot that together. And that's another way to do it. There's not much there's no editing in that program. So, yes.
I am struggling terribly. I don't know if it's the painting or the paper, but it's chalky.
It's chalky.
Chalky.
Yeah.
Chalky. Yeah. I was saying, just say
It takes two.
I thought you said chalky, and I'm like, am I saying it right?
Said it right.
But anyway, it's just I'm struggling terrible. I tried to even sand it. I don't know. It's not smooth. I don't know what I'm gonna do.
So it's kind of chunky. Is that what you're saying? It's
Chalky.
Chalky. Okay. Chalky comes from using too much white. And if you're working on the dress, if you're working on the dress area, then instead of using, sometimes if you can get away with not using white to lighten, but to just like, you notice I put lavender in some areas and peachy colors, and then the glaze will not be chalky at all. So if you have an area and you let it dry, you can't fix it right now, but you let it dry, then you can go back with a glaze and you can put like a little bit of a permanent rose in some areas, maybe a little bit of orange in some areas, just to get rid of the chalkiness. And send me a picture too, Jeanette. I'll be happy to look at it.
It's just the worst thing that is in the face.
Oh, the face is chalky.
And it's really, I don't know what to do. It's very...
It's okay. It's okay. And mine got chalky too because I kept going back to just white. So you heard me say I wanted to get that pretty orange tone on the top of her cheek right here. I couldn't get it. I kept putting white to lighten it, and it kept getting chalky. So Max Ginsburg would always tell us, if you can lighten with a color, like lighten it with yellow, lighten it instead of white. if you're using pink, you can, or if you're using red or magenta, you can still lighten with yellow. Ask yourself if it needs to be a bright color, then you would use a bright yellow. If it needs to be an earthy color, then you would use like yellow ochre. And sometimes maybe even mix a pile of yellow ochre with a little white in it, just to tone down the whiteness. But the white is what keeps things being really chalky. Now, if it, like I said, you can let it dry later and then go back and glaze some pretty color back over that to see if you can bring it up. But I kept doing the same thing. Her face would get all chalky. I would lose the pretty pink, and I'd go put a big stroke with a little magenta or permanent rose and a little bit of that vermilion right on her cheek. And I just have this big blob of blush on her cheek. And I'd try to wiggle that in to make it more colorful and not so flat and chalky.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, I have to send you a picture.
Yes.
It's almost like the paper is coming off, and then I have little texture of paper in the skin. You know what I mean? Anyway, I'll send you a picture.
Yeah, send me a picture. I also had some blobs that dried on her face that I had to go in and kind of scrape off a little because they were messing up that little face. If you have a blob right in the wrong place, it looks like a big mole or something. So I had to go in and kind of scrape it down a little bit with a palette knife because her face is really smooth.
Yeah, but mine is not.
Yours is not.
No, it's just, I don't know I don't know. You'll see what I'm talking about. It's just the whole thing. I don't know if the paper is coming off. It just has that feeling that the paper is coming off and it's making little texture, anyway.
And it might be doing that. So yeah. I'm gonna see if I can pull this image up. Let's see. Does anybody need the image right now? Are you working from my image while you're painting?
No.
Wave to me if you do or something. Teresa, are you working? You have an image there you're working from?
Chris, yeah.
I can't see you, Teresa, and you're muted.
Yeah, I have one on my iPad, Chris.
Okay, good. Okay. Go ahead, Jackie. We're going to ask me something else.
I was going to ask you about that white, the light color around her dress. Isn't that, it's not just pure white.
No.
Well, that's what I used, but I used just pure white. But what did you mix it with little ochre, yellow ochre and white?
Yes. I had a pile throughout this entire painting for the shade and areas on the painting that was yellow ochre and white. And it had about 6 values of yellow ochre and white, all the way down to almost pure white. But anytime you're tempted to grab pure white, try to stop yourself. Unless you have a lot of color that's wet on the canvas and you're trying to lighten it, then you could brush mix that white in onto the canvas. But white will for sure make your painting look flat and chalky and lifeless. Light comes in either a warm temperature or a cool temperature. Even if it's hitting white, like look at the porch here. Look at the porch down there. If we really zoomed in on that, and that's why, let me see if I can open the image up for you guys to see. Let me find it here and open it up, and we'll zoom in on a couple of areas because I do have this, a couple of areas that I took photos of it close up while I was being sneaky at Cheekwood. I would get so mad, you guys, about this. I was like, why can't we take pictures? What the heck? Oh, it would make me so mad. And I'd take Charlotte with me, and of course she's a little criminal anyway, so she would always be figuring out a way for us to sneak. She'd stand in front of me, and
my husband, while you're doing that, my husband and I went, when we visited Rome, we went into the Sistine Chapel, and I was taking pictures and got in trouble.
You're not supposed to, huh?
No. I understand that part.
Well, it's kind of like, would it oh, that's not it. Would it damage the paintings if we did that? I don't know. I don't understand it. But Some of
I
it's,
understand they say flash cameras can damage the painting.
I wasn't ever using a flash because then you just have a big glare. But I did, somebody did tell me at a Craig Fawn, or one of those historical homes, that if people take pictures inside, they've had people come back and rob them because they're taking pictures of the layout of the museum to try to rob them. So I did understand that. But I would go in, in some museums, like in Atlanta, they would let you, they would give you a photographer's pass if you were an artist, and you just hung that on your lapel, that you could take pictures. And I appreciate it. And now they've quit doing that. So they let you take pictures at the Frist unless it's a private thing. Well, darn, I don't have those pictures down here. I thought I had them on my hard drive. I can't zoom in on this video, so. But I guess we can just look at part of it on the video. But the porch has blues and yellows and even some peach colors on the porch. So I think just, really studying what other people see. Sometimes your prints of a work of art are wrong. You can look at a art book, and you can look at 10 art books of the same image, and some of them will be bluish, some of them will be reddish. And then when you get in real life, that's why I see Cesar Santos does a study from the best image he can find online, and then he takes it into the museum and compares, which would be great for us to do at some point. If we could get to Cheekwood and they had this up, it would be great for us to take ours and see how well we did and how close we got to it. Oh, Jeanette, that doesn't look chalky at all to me. It does look a little bit rough. Oh, so I see what you're saying as far as lifting the paper off. And maybe you are pulling too much on the paper. You have to watch that, because I haven't used these sketchbooks very much. So I don't know how durable they are as well if you start really scrubbing. I'll go around to some of my students and they've worn their brushes down to a nub. So if you're working on a board or a harder surface than a regular canvas, you will wear your brushes down. And some people have a lot more pressure than others do. I can tell that when you guys are working in charcoal. Sometimes people have really dark charcoal drawings and some people have really light touch. So that may be why you're having some trouble, Jeanette. Do you have a hard touch? Sometimes. Can't remember. She's muted. All right, here's this image also of the, let me share the screen. I did find this one of the phone app, in case you don't have that. It is called Pick Joiner, and then I guess this is the one you have, Norma, Pick Stitch Collage. And these are free, and again, you can see how they'll let you choose. In the middle down here at the bottom, there's all kinds of layouts that you can put 2 or 3 pictures together. I only choose the 2 side by sides because it's small enough already. I don't need them to be any smaller than that.
Christy, I have a question.
Yes, ask away.
On that Frankenstein arm. Have you worked on the Frankenstein arm?
Yes,
yeah,
I
didn't dare put blue in it. It's gonna look awful for me. So is there any way that we can just make it look like a arm without being veiny?
Yeah, what I ended up doing is, I don't know if you can see it on mine, but I ended up dragging, let me take a picture. I don't think that'll work. I ended up dragging cad orange, or mix yourself a really nice bright orange, and put just a tiny speck of blue in it to tone it down. And then make yourself a couple of little values of it. Maybe lighten it with a little yellow, and then drag that over if you've already got some blue on it and it looks like Frankenstein, just barely drag that over the top. I can take a picture of my arm.
I didn't dare to do that, but now it just looks extremely flat.
Yeah.
Uh,
Let me do that real quick. I can show you my arm up close here. I just took a picture.
You see
of
it?
Let me see. Hold on, wait a minute. I've got the screen shared. Let me stop that. Oh, no, I don't. Where are you, Grace? Hold on. Hang on.
It looks
Keep it up
extremely
there for a
flat.
second. Yeah, yeah, it is. And you need the value in there. Let me spotlight it for a second. Hold on, put it back up. Okay, there it is, spotlight. Yeah, so you need the orange. You do have to have light, medium, and dark on that arm. Just be careful when you're working on any kind of, that looks beautiful, by the way. Your painting looks great. If you've done a cylinder before, though, you know that you have to mix you up a little bit of, if the orange is too bright for that arm, mix a little bit of burnt sienna with a tiny speck of blue in it. And then
I'm your black sheep. I'm your black sheep. Student. I don't follow rules, and I don't know. I'm your black sheep, so no, I don't know.
Well,
but I just don't want to. I just don't want it to look flat.
Flat.
But I don't want to put the green.
No, you don't have
in
to.
it.
You don't have to. Just mix yourself up 3 values of that arm color, and then make sure that you have a light, medium, and dark. Put it in boldly like mosaical tiles, and then take a soft brush and wiggle them together so that it has some roundness to it. I'm going to show you my arm real quick in a minute, just so you can see how I fixed it. It looks better. It still needs some work, but I have it on my phone, and I have to put it on this other little drive real quick. So give me just a second. Any other questions while I'm doing that? Great question, Grace. And the painting is beautiful. You could stop with it just like it is. You don't have to fix it, but I get it. I think you should fix it. Oh, previews using it. Good grief. What does that mean? Do you guys see the painting on there for some reason? Oh, I see what it is. I'm trying to share it. I just haven't completed that. And let me stop your spotlight, Grace, because all we see is you right now. Okay, here we go. It will not let me eject this. Hold on. So while I'm trying to get this up, what have been some of your takeaways? What have you learned doing this painting? Any thoughts? Anything you don't want to do again? Give me some of your feedback.
Well, off the top of my head right now, I learned how mixing the color and how to get, a certain like the shadows and everything. I love the mixture of colors, how to get that, because I usually don't mix color. I just try to find a tube that's closer to the color that I see. So
Gotcha.
that's I'm learning the measurement thing. I still haven't gotten that down packed, but I'm still learning how to measure. So because I find myself, like you said earlier, I had to go back, and when I start painting, something's off and I have to go back and fix it. So I understand the importance of measuring. I just got to get it in my head, that theory of how to do it, how to come from, from a larger painting to a smaller painting and all of that. So, I've learned that, and it's just been a challenge, but in a good way. And sometimes I find myself, when I'm painting, it's like, okay, I keep messing up, so I don't want to do this again. And then, but before I give up, I'll make a stroke to make it right. And then I say, oh, okay, I do know how to paint. So, sometimes
I
I doubt
know.
myself. I doubt myself whether I'm a good painter or not. And so when, this whole thing, it's just an up and down thing for me. But then I encourage myself and say, hey, I'm not too bad. I'm pretty good. So I'm gonna keep going. But I'm learning a whole lot. And what I don't want to do anymore, I'm not sure. I just so far so good. I just have to be in the right mood, the right frame of mind, or whatever to paint. And it's been years since I've painted, so I haven't been this consistent in a long time. So it's it's taken me into a different place that I like. So and it's pretty spiritual for me too. So so I guess that's my takeaway. That's what I can think of right now.
I love it. And I think we all can relate with the struggle of, hey, Carol, glad you logged on here.
Thanks.
We were just going back to, and I'm going to show this arm. I did take a picture of it and get it up. So I want to show you a little bit about that. But we're just thinking about what your takeaways from this painting are, your study of what you learned from it and what you think. Because again, if you talk about it and kind of rehash it, it'll stick in your mind a little bit better. Even just remembering what you said, Jackie, that there are times when I think, who am I kidding myself? Who do I think I am that I can do this? This is terrible. It's a mess. Denise.
I remind myself of the many, many times over the years that you said to us, you don't know what you know, or you said, you'll be going along and all of a sudden, years later, something will dawn on you. And to me, that's what this study is about. I don't even realize the things I'm learning at the time until in the future, I make an application of what I learned today, and then it hit me. Oh, that's what I did then. So I'm not doing this portrait in order to complete this perfect portrait. I'm learning many, many things that are going to pop up in the future. And I learned that in my sketchbook through a bunch of foolishness. I learned that when I went to do serious work, all of a sudden there was a little something I could do that I had trouble with before, and I knew where that came from. That's what I'm not trying to produce something perfect here. I'm trying to learn a lot of different things, and they will come to me later. Subconsciously, I'll use them, just like you said.
That's so true, Denise. It's almost like a connecting of the dots, and you can't get it all in one place or one time or one thing. It's a continual journey, which is what makes it so exciting, is you're always learning something new. Just thinking about the last couple of hours that we've been on here, I came in here with a heaviness on me, and it's lifted. It's lifted. And just doing art. Go ahead, Denise.
And there's something that I would like for all of us to remember, and this is something I did not do early on, and it made my progression, it slowed me down. Be very proud of anything that you accomplish because you tried. Do not compare it to anyone else. The only person you compare yourself to is who you were yesterday, both in life and in art. And you just, it's not fair. If you had a 10-year-old child that was upset because it could not do trigonometry, you would say that doesn't even make any sense. When the child is old enough, it'll do trigonometry if it wants to. But be proud of what you've done today. Don't be ashamed to show it. Be very proud of it. And because that is what you learned today. And that's a beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm. Amen. It is. And it takes so much courage to do this. There's that wonderful poem, The Man in the Arena, by Teddy Roosevelt. And it's really, really good. I mean, hey guys, we're out here in the arena. we're picking this stuff up and we're trying to do it, and we're victorious because we have the courage to do it. So give yourself plenty of grace with this. And let me show you this arm, if I can get it to share.
Another thing, Christy.
Yeah. Whoops, I'm losing you, Jeanette.
Okay, another thing that is, oh, now can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, we're gone. Can you hear me?
No, I can hear you.
Another thing, yeah, that is good. That, you know, working together, because it makes us move. Instead of like staying for 3 hours in the face or staying 3 hours in the hand, you're like, oh, she's going out to the dress, and you're like, okay, and that you always tell us, don't stay there because you make a bigger mess, and I think that's good. You're like, oh, okay, I'm gonna move, I'm gonna forget about that one that I'm struggling to, and then when you go back, you have a fresher mind to it. So, and of course the colors, the mixing of the colors is good. It's like, you know, remembering what goes to what to create these colors, and I think that's gonna stick with me now. So
good, thank you for sharing that. I think that's important too. We spur each other on. You know, we just by doing it and seeing everybody on here painting. And setting aside this little increment of time, this is my paint time. I'm going to do it no matter what comes out of it. At least I'm in here doing it. And it's just therapy and nourishment for my body and my brain and my spirit and my soul. Jackie, you're just shaking away there. I don't know what's going on with your internet.
I
can see you, but you're just doing this little dance thing. I don't know what's going on with it. You might have to log back on. It's messing up.
is everybody else having you know, it's cutting out?
Is it?
It's like I have a poor connection. Is it just me?
Yeah.
There you go.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me, Christy?
I can hear you. Your video is cutting out.
I know. I'm tripping out because I'm seeing all those twerks too. I don't understand that.
Huh.
Okay. She's being delayed.
It's delayed. Okay.
It's probably delaying, so it's probably her internet, because I'm not having a problem here.
Let me stop the share for a second. Grace, I wanted to mention this arm. Can you see the arm that I have up here? Grace, wave if you can see it. Can you see the arm?
You got orange.
Yeah, it's really bright orange.
I can see that you have some orange.
Yeah, I still have a lot of dark on here. You wouldn't have to go that dark in this midsection.
And the dark is what?
The dark is simply this orange burnt sienna color with a little blue in it. It's got less blue down here where I'm pointing, more blue up here. And so there's just a variety. I went back in and I put the little knuckles back in. But remembering down here, this whole hand is in shadow. So if I use the really light color, it's almost too much. In fact, these knuckles may be popping a little bit too much. But again, I've taken a picture of this down here in the basement where the light is very dark. So it's a real harsh picture of it. From a distance, it doesn't quite look like this. But use brighter colors.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time with that thumb.
The thumb.
Yeah, the thumb is just I don't know if you saw.
And it needs to disappear. Put the out the knuckles and where they go, and put little circles for the knuckles, and even a circle for where the knuckle of the thumb goes. Remember the rhythm of the knuckles don't go straight across; they're in an arch. So if you'll go back in, that's what I do when I'm working on any kind of hand, whether it's open or closed, is I'll put the circles for all the knuckles first. Then I'll put the little color, the orange or darker color for the rest of the finger next, and pull it out from each of those knuckles. Remember, the knuckles usually go in the palm of the hand, not out here, that first row. And just make the anatomy of the hand first by the little circles as knuckles first. Don't think in your mind it's a finger, it's a preconceived thing. Just think about the shapes you're seeing and how those line up. They do look straight across on mine. I'll have to zoom in on the original. If you can take the original and zoom in on it, you'll probably be able to tell a whole lot better on that. Does that help you a little bit?
All right. I do have a quote.
Yes,
Chris,
share it. Share it.
can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, definitely. Thank you.
You have a quote?
Yeah. Well, yeah. That is not about the outcome is not about what I'm going to put in the wall or sell or whatever. It's the process, and it's what it did to me while I was doing it.
Amen.
For me, I mean, I have so many paintings, and some of them are okay, some of them are good, and some of them are awful. It's about what it does to me while I'm doing it.
Yeah, that's perfect. That fits right in with what we're talking about. It's not just we are so product minded that we just have to think about the outcome. I am too. I have this producer in my head that's constantly telling me to produce something that's a masterpiece. And while that's a worthy goal, it's not the end all be all. It's what it's doing to us, and as we're doing it, it's making us nicer people. When I go upstairs, I'm going to be much nicer for Mark to be around than I was.
All right. My producer got sick and I killed him.
You tossed him out the window. I love that, Grace.
Hey, Christy.
Yes, Teresa.
I just want to share this. My son and daughter-in-law have a condo in Florida, and they were down there a couple of weeks ago when spring break started, and then the virus hit. But they have complimented me. It just made me my heart and my eyes tear up, because they came back, they took pictures of the walls, and they want me to do paintings for their walls. I just cried because it made me feel so happy that somebody valued me to do that, you know.
Wow.
I want to tell you, I'm nowhere near good, but at least I'm learning. And thank you so much.
Oh, I love that, Teresa. And listen, it is, there are some people who appreciate art, and there are some people who have no interest in it at all. And they will just walk by some amazing masterpiece on the wall and just not even notice it at all. And so it might be that we run across one of those people at a crucial point in our life, somebody who doesn't understand or appreciate art at all. And if we let that be our motivator, then we've really missed the boat, because that person could care less about art. So when you find people who really love and appreciate what you do, it just lights your fire to continue doing it. And try to hold on to those. I have a little folder of testimonials in my email box that I keep, of people who have appreciated my art and people who appreciate my my teaching. And while that's not the whole reason I do it, it is an important element of making the world a better place. I have to know that what I'm doing in creating something of beauty is making the world a better place. It's making me better for other people to be around. So there you go.
It's really nice. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
I couldn't stand seeing myself twerking, so I had to take the video off. But the thing about it, this whole thing about art is healing. And it's there's so many great assets about it. And when I share it on Facebook to my friends, they encourage me. And sometimes, I'm not that I have to have validation, but it feels good to know that somebody can appreciate what you do. And even my husband told me, and he doesn't comment too much about my art. He'll just come in and just go back out and don't say nothing. I be wanting him to say stuff, but he won't say anything. But he can see the difference when we did Sargent's painting, and he said, wow, that makes a big difference from what I knew before, so he can see the improvement. And he said, oh, that was the best, that's the best painting ever, you know what I'm saying? So that encouraged me to really stick with this. And I said, well, hey, this girl is pretty bad. You know, this Christy is amazing. So I said, I'm gonna stick with her. So just, so art is very healing for me. And like I said, it's an escape to get away from everything that's going on and to keep my mind in a certain place and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a little bit of my little testimony and sharing.
I love it. I love it. Thank you, Jackie. And I think just continuing to do it. You will have, God is just like that. He's going to give you encouragement along the way. Sometimes it might get spread out a little bit, but if it's something that he's called you to do or put in your heart to do, he's going to spur you on to do it. The thing is that we are such creatures of, you can have, what is it they say, you can have 20 attaboys and 1 discouragement. And the 1 discouragement is the thing that you hang on to.
Yeah.
And so we must learn to be receivers of the encouragement. You know, I think I share this a lot, but one of my sweet friends, Rhonda, who came to my classes for a while, she was such a wonderful receiver. And whenever you would give her a compliment or a gift, she would go, oh
yeah,
really? Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And I could just watch her absorb that encouragement into her spirit and hold it and keep it and be a purveyor of it. I don't know if that's the right word, but I'm trying to practice receiving more and letting that stick instead of the one thing that I failed in or the one discouraging comment that I got. That I could pull those discouraging comments up in a heartbeat. But do I remember all the wonderful accolades and encouraging things that people have said along the way? So again, those are important things. Carol, I've loved seeing your precious granddaughter here and letting her peek into what we're doing. I know you're doing the most important thing by being there for her and loving on her.
Thank you for letting her peek in. She likes to come and show off a little.
Oh, I love that. No, she's a work of art, so we get to soak her up and enjoy her.
And she loves art too. We do a lot of art together. So
that's so awesome. That's so awesome. I know some of you guys are still working. I'm going to go ahead and share the screen again. I can't find the image, so I'm going to let you we're just going to look at this painting of her for a minute. Don't pay attention to mine. But I've just frozen the video in a spot where we can look at Lillian's painting for just a minute. And I want to ask you a few questions about this painting, if you can take a minute to think about it and enjoy it. I found a website that has some great discussion questions for art contemplation. And let me just ask you, and just randomly answer this if you have an answer. If not, we'll go on to the next question. What was your first reaction to this painting when you first saw it, when I sent it to you? What were your thoughts and your reactions, Denise?
It was calming.
Mm.
To me, the biggest goal that I have when I create something is, by the grace of God, that it feels. Now, we're not talking about the stupid sketchbook stuff that I throw in there, but I'm talking about serious work. Is if it feels, if it causes someone to have a feeling, whatever that is, then I have been successful. This one did that.
Amen. It did that for me.
It took me back to a calmer, quieter time with the long dress and the porch and the shade blowing. You know, I think about all the days when I was a young child and I would go out in the country to visit my relatives and sit on the porch, and all the other families from all around would come by, and it was just a calmer, more peaceful time. And I think I needed that right now.
Yes. That gives me chill bumps because I feel that way too. And the book in her hand, you know, I love to read, and my times to read are interrupted a lot these days, but to sit on the porch in the midst of beautiful flowers, and because there's a breeze, you know, that it's a cool day, and it just, I had that same feeling and that same draw, I think. What else? Any other thoughts or reactions to this painting when you first saw it?
Well, I thought of all the beautiful colors and the softness of it, and that's what. And then I looked at it as, oh, I can do this painting easy. But then I was mistaken. So as I got into it, it was more challenging than I thought. And I think you're right, because it's small. I've never really painted this small. So, but I did feel, you know, a sense of peace about it. I love the colors and how they blended, and the light that's on it, and you know, and as you paint, as you get into the painting, to me, I connect more with it, and I more feelings comes, whether it's good or bad. Sometimes I say, okay, I'm done with this, and sometimes I say, oh, it's so beautiful, let me keep going, I'm learning, you know what I mean? But I got a lot of softness and beauty. I don't know if it reminded me of anything. When I paint, I usually, if I can be direct, I usually paint African American paintings. So I'm learning how to mix color with my white American sisters, you know, and learning how to do that too, you know. And then, you know, so it's you know, it's giving me, you know, a chance to do both, to, you know, to mix color, because I think it's different colors when you do darker skin.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I normally have, even around in my studio. I do African women and things like that. So it kind of took me to a different place, because I'm willing to learn further, you know, go deeper into, and then also the masters. I've always wanted to learn about the masters of painters, because I've never gone to college for this. I've never been trained to do this, just a natural talent. So, you know, that's what I got out of it. So.
That's great. That's great. Denise and Grace and Jeanette wanted to say something too. Go ahead, Denise.
Jackie sparked something that I have been thinking about lately. And she was talking about learning to mix colors for these, I don't know. See, I have a problem with calling people black and white. We're colorful. And when you're a painter, you're a whole lot of things and a whole lot of different colors. And for lack of a better description of color, I have really wanted to learn to paint African American skin. I think it's beautiful, and I want to learn that. I hope someday we might do a study in that.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. Can you guys hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, you know, that's what our world is made up of. Even Indian culture. I like different cultures. So I want to learn different cultures, not just, you know, one color, because that we're a mixture of beautiful people in this world. And I'd like to learn, you know, that's why doing this was a good thing for me too. So, because I love Indians, I love the Japanese, all the different cultures. I think it's a good experience to know how to mix those colors. So,
Amen. Amen.
Yeah.
Grace and Jeanette, did y'all have something?
Hi,
Oh, no,
Chris.
I just wanted to say it was just sweet to me. Okay, it was just a very sweet expression, just relaxing and enjoying the beautiful day, the sun and the flowers. So it just gave me that feeling of sweetness and gratefulness. And so anyway, that was it.
And me, when I saw it, I'm going like, I'm not gonna do this small and in a piece of paper. I'm not gonna put all that effort in a piece of paper. So that's why I went with the canvas.
With the canvas.
And also, you know, I went Google her, and I went to Google and see all her other paintings. And I found there's not many pictures, like you said, of this painting, but I found one where there was in the little corner right here. This is not the one, it's over here. Genesita has
this
it.
one?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Look at here. I found this one in the internet, and see how they put up right here is, okay, let me put it another way. It's like a veil blowing in the wind. See, it's a see-through veil blowing in the wind, and that's what I really, really wanted to do and try to get it. I didn't get it. It's a little bit too stiff. But maybe later, Christy, you can help me, you know, to make sure that this is the beautiful part of the painting, is the veil blowing in the wind. And something else is the flowers. The flowers, it seems like they are just falling into her dress.
Yeah.
The way
That's
that
what
the movement, the movement that you see right here is like the flowers are just be part of her dress.
Yeah.
And I absolutely love those two
That's what I was
factors in the painting.
That's what I was noticing, was the flowers and her dress are the same, because I was wondering, it's like you really don't pay attention to her. You feel the flow of the dress and it flows into the flowers. Now, I do like it if you want the different look, like Christy's, like yours is on the right. It seems like it more emphasizes her, where the other, you get more of not her, but a feeling of the coolness and the peacefulness. So it depends on what kind of look you want. As to, I'm seeing when you have the two together with the dresses and different things, that it depends on what kind of feel. And I was just sitting there fixing to ask you, why they put so many flowers on that? And when Grace said that, I was like, okay, duh. So it's all in what you're wanting to, the image
Emphasize,
and the feeling
yeah.
you want to give.
Yeah, yeah. And everybody, you know, people take things in differently. One of the other questions was, how does your eye move through this painting? And for me, because she's looking down, you kind of move down toward the flowers. You see the book because it's so bright, but then the other pink flowers in the shade move you back up in kind of a circular motion, that you just kind of, and the way her dress is blowing, it kind of keeps you going round and round in a circle, which is a pretty effective composition, because it doesn't take you out of the painting anywhere. There's not a pathway going out. It keeps you circling back and forth in a circle. Does anybody move through it differently, or do you stop to pay attention to how you move through a painting?
I think I just kind of go with the flow of how I like that movement feeling, and you even, and I didn't know I was doing this before, but you brought it out perfectly one time when you were talking about sometimes there's an S movement. You know, you can feel that flow of the S, and then you can, the S shape or whatever. So, you know, when you get more into it, I don't know, I guess we flow different ways, a different way. And so I don't know. It's just, it was a great movement. It was soft, and it was, you know, I don't know. I just kind of, sometimes I skip from one thing to the other and end up with 5 or 6 brushes in my other hand too, because I'm always switching over just like you. So it's like, okay. So, and I switch back and forth. I don't stay in one place, because for some reason my hands won't let me, or my eyes won't let me. I have to move somewhere else when I stayed in one place too long, you know, so.
Well, and so that's a good thing. That's a good method, is to move around and not get too stuck. There are detail painters that is crucial to stay in one area till you get it finished. There are people who paint, just start with one little square inch and they paint that whole thing perfect and they move on. It just boggles my mind. My brain is not geared to work that way. But so I do like to move around. It helps me keep my excitement. And just the fact of that you do move around a certain way, you know, we've been walking around kind of blind. We still walk around kind of blind. And each time we meet together and learn, our eyes are opened a little bit more to color, to composition, to the fact that you even can move somebody in or out of your painting. You can use things that are arrows that shoot the person right out the side, and you haven't captured them at all in your painting. So those are important things. What was the most enjoyable thing? I know some of you are still working, so maybe this will be a hard question to answer. What was the most enjoyable part for you?
I can tell you right away.
Okay, Grace.
You know what's the best thing has been?
What? Jeanette?
Working together.
that has been awesome to have her here.
Oh,
Yes, it's been wonderful being
Yes.
together. Yeah.
I'm jealous. I love that.
For me, I love doing fabric. So I got really involved in
The fabrics.
the fabric, and then maybe the flowers, but I think the fabric was more enjoyable for me.
Okay. Denise, what were you going to say?
Y'all are going to think I'm crazy. But
Nah.
I had so much fun doing the post.
Oh, yeah.
That was so much fun because when I see dimension happening, I get excited, and I had more fun with that post. So
I enjoyed the post. I went back and scumbled my post. I had just put them in real fast and I don't have them in this picture, but I went back and worked on the post some more, and I put some thick paint on the top of the banister. It's thick horizontal, so it's catching light, and it really has a dimensional quality. And I think that's one of my favorite parts of what I did on the painting is the posts. So yeah, no, you're not crazy at all. I think it's a great habit on every painting to decide what you absolutely love about your painting. And even if it's a color that you mixed and you love that color, but to say it, to talk about it, to think about it. Maybe if you're doing it in your sketchbooks, you write about it. You say, I absolutely loved those columns on that porch. I did a great job on those. Denise?
You taught us that so many years ago. Focus on the part that you like the best.
Yeah.
And I tried to take that to heart. And when you do that, it spurs you on to keep going.
Yes.
But I just can't reiterate enough how just the fact that somebody is trying to do this, it's wonderful. Be proud of what you've done.
Be proud. And listen, if you get this thing back out in 6 months and work on it again, post it on the Facebook group. Share it with us. Share all the stages or any part of it that you're doing. It tickles me to death, and it makes me want to hurry up and go in there and get a paintbrush when I see you guys post. There's a couple other questions, but one more that I thought we'd venture into. What did you learn, and what do you want to remember from this study? And I can answer that off the top. One of the things I learned was the yellow ochre and Prussian blue green color that I mixed. I've never mixed those two colors together in all these years I've been painting because I don't use Prussian blue. But I really like that gray down green color that I mixed. And so if I got one color mixture out of it that I'll carry with me. Also, I introduced Naples yellow back into my palette. I don't use Naples yellow, but it made a really pretty peachy color when I was mixing skin tones. So we get kind of in a rut with the colors we reach for. Somebody said that about Daniel Green one time, that he used a lot of the same colors, and his paintings got kind of gray, green color. They didn't like his palette. And it's easy to get stuck with just a certain go-to mixture. So that was one of the things. What else? What did you learn?
Christy, yellow ochre and what?
Prussian blue. Mix green. You mix your greens up with yellow ochre and Prussian blue. It makes a really nice organic green gray color that I used a lot in this painting. In fact, when I started zooming in and looking at it, it looks like she toned her canvas maybe with that, because all around her head is this pretty green gray color. Under her skin tones, under the dress. If you look at it, look how there's just a kind of an army green color almost through the whole thing. It's subtle, but it's under there. So I don't know what I might use it for in the future, but I can remember almost exactly where I learned color mixtures. Alizarin and sap green is another color mixture. Raw sienna and alizarin. I never thought to mix those two. And so I learned those in different places at workshops and things, and my brain wouldn't even think to go. We develop a rut to where we just mix the certain thing all the time. Norma, did you have a thought about it?
I was going to say, I've been doing pastels now for so long that I just reach in there and pick out that color that I want. So this has really been good for me to kind of get back at painting, and actually I'm enjoying it. Actually, I thought I'd never go back to painting again once I left, but
Me
I enjoy
too.
it. Probably will continue.
I have
Thank you.
pastel commissions, and I'm enjoying the oil paint so much. I'm kind of like, don't you want an oil painting instead? I love pastel, but I really have enjoyed mixing the colors, and it's just that part of it is just enjoyable in itself without even putting it on the canvas, just sitting there and mixing those beautiful piles of color and enjoying that process. So fun. What things do you want to remember? What do you want to it may be from the Sargent or the Raphael study. Are there some things that you're taking away that you want to remember that you think are going to be important going forward as you paint? Any thoughts?
I like the layering, like laying down the color and then coming back and putting another, you know how you start from the back to the front?
Yeah.
I really like that technique. I'm trying to remember if I've ever done that. I probably have, but you know, it's just the technique of doing that and bringing it forward. That I just think it adds depth and adds, I don't know, deepness or something to the whole painting. So that's one thing that I'm going to do from now on. If I ever do any portrait painting or anything, just start from the bottom and the back and come forward.
The back and come forward. Yeah. Denise.
Edges, edges, edges.
Yeah.
Lost, found, faded, just, they're so important.
Yeah. That's a continual thing that nobody really touched on a lot in my earlier years. So it's something I always want to remember. And you'll remember parts of this painting because you looked at it for 4 weeks. There'll be things that you won't forget about it. The dappled light. What about the brass pot? Did anybody else have fun painting that brass pot?
No, I haven't. I have not mastered it yet. And no, it's not been fun at all.
Okay.
Yeah, I gotta get to that brass pot. That's just yeah.
Teresa, what about you? Yeah, it's hard. It comes in stages, and this is another one. If you'll zoom in on that thing while you're working on it, crop it out and zoom in on it. There's a lot of that green color in that brass pot. Now, your brain's going to tell you just to mix up yellows and maybe a little bit of red that's reflecting in there, but there's a lot of green in there. And green is not the opposite of yellow. So why the green, it's a shiny pot and there's a lot of plant material. So in anything shiny, all your surrounding stuff is going to reflect in it. And it's never going to look right if you don't put that green in it. So the green gray color is really important to go in that pot. All right, I guess we're getting close to 12 right now. Do you think you know any more about Lillian after painting this? I don't know. I mean, that's kind of a quirky question, but we have maybe could understand her struggles with it. This again was a huge painting, 65 inches tall. So 5 foot tall canvas. So any errors you make are going to be large, glaring errors. Ours were little bitty, but.
Well, I was wondering, I guess she had somebody pose. Did she have somebody pose that? I mean, and then, in those days, I don't know if they took pictures of paintings and then did them or anything like that.
I don't know. My guess is because the bio said she worked out in the mountains in Connecticut where it was remote so that she could have her models out there in a discreet way. So I'm assuming she worked a lot from life. So yeah, I need to get back to that. I love working from life and I haven't been doing that at all. So I know some of the art studios up north are opening back up with a smaller open studio setup to where they have models, but the easels are placed 6 to 10 feet apart. So maybe Warehouse 521 will open back up and do that at some point. But that's a great thing to do. If you ever want to try that, I'll be happy that we can go together and we can work together to work from life. But it's really, really good for you. Or even just, paint your own hand or paint your husband while you're, you know, somebody in your family while they're watching TV, watch while the kids are playing a video game or something.
Right.
You know, sit there and just do color studies of their arm, or, you know, their nostrils. Anything like that you can do from life is a great exercise and will help you when you, because again, I struggle showing you guys these pictures of my painting. It's not accurate to what you see here laying on the table. It's not the same thing. So the photograph really distorts, and it's pretty evident here when you try to photograph this painting to see what it looks like. So
yeah, wow.
all right. So what I'll do is I'm going to continue with the same. I know a few people are dropping out for the next couple of weeks. I've got a few coming back in that want to learn Zoom. I think some of my older students that have been coming for a long time and haven't tried Zoom yet are seeing that we're probably not going to get back to the studio right away, so they're missing it. I think Reba's going to come back in and a couple of others. So I'm going to still video my little segments on these studies just because it's easier for me to be attentive to you and answer questions without having all my mess out and trying to fool with 2 or 3 cameras and the Zoom app and all that. So I'm going to make some short little video clips and just to show you each step of the study, and then we'll stop and do it. And our goal will be, I'll still say 9:30 to 12. I have the option now, I don't have Bible study on Tuesdays now, to go 9:30 to 12:30, just like our old class was. So we can play it by ear. If you have to log off early, that's fine, but that will give us a 3-hour window to do these studies in. And our goal will be over the next 3 weeks to complete a study in each class. I haven't done it yet, so I don't know how it's going to go, but I'm going to try. And what I'll do is I'll send you the colors ahead of time, and I would just use a sketchbook if you want to use canvas paper, or if you want to use a small canvas. No, I'd say no larger than 8 by 10, because you don't, unless you want, if you're going to try to do something in a couple of hours, it needs to be kind of small, so you're not trying to get a whole bunch of canvas covered. Any questions about that, or any suggestions for how we go forward? Everybody okay with the subjects I chose?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. You have to be kind of excited about it. If you look at them and you go, you know, I want the majority of people to like the subject matter.
It looked like, yeah, like again, when you first look at it, it looked like it'd be simple that we could just do it in one setting.
Yeah.
You said something earlier about websites you were going to tell us about. Didn't you say something about websites? Because I wrote it down.
I was going to tell you about the phone apps. That I think that's all, but the only other thing maybe was the information on Lillian.
Oh, okay.
But I don't know what else I mentioned today. I've forgotten about it if I did. I recorded it, so maybe I could go back and listen to what I recorded and see what I was going to share with you guys. I am posting on the Facebook page, so if you're not checking that, I'm trying to post some inspirational things and paintings through the week, and video clips, just short. I know your attention and you got a lot going on, so we don't have time to watch them, but when I find good videos, I've been posting those on there too for you guys to watch, to keep you connected to art. So check out that Path to Creativity page. And if you have any artwork, please send it to me. I'll try to get it critiqued as soon as I can. And
are we going to continue the challenge? I mean, I never did get caught up with the challenge. So does that start every month all over, or just what?
Yeah, the sketchbook challenge.
Yeah, I never did catch up with that, so I want to start back with.
Listen, I think we need to always be sketching, and I kind of dropped the ball on it. I always do. That's a pattern with me, that I'll start strong. I'll get everybody excited. Denise and Norma and a couple of other you guys have been continuing to draw. You guys are just like Superman. Y'all have just knocked the ball out of the park with the sketching every day. They took that challenge really serious and did it every day. And I know you learned some things and have, I know you've expanded in your skill set by just doing that. I can see it.
Okay.
So yes, Jackie, please do it and post it, because these gals, they will spur you on. Post it. Any little thing that you sketch, don't judge yourself about it. Just put it up there and say, hey, I'm doing it, y'all. That's the beauty of it. And let's keep doing this. Hey, listen, this world, I don't picture this world getting a lot more peaceful and calm. I just think we're going to continue to fight things like this. So we need this to counterbalance what's going on and keep our spirits nourished so that we can spill this out into the world around us. One of the Bible studies I'm in right now says, everywhere you set your foot, you change the spiritual atmosphere.
Yes, yes, yes.
And if we are being filled up by this creativity time that God has put in us, and we've set aside this time to do it, what spills out of us will be just balm for a really torn world right now. And we need joy, and we need to have love and patience and grace, and that will spill over if we've attended to this part of our spirits. Norma, did you have something? No, I just saw you leaning forward.
Listening intently.
Well, listen, I'm just preaching to the choir right here, because I was just so icky last night and today when I joined in, I just had that slime on me. And I picture that slime the kids make, and how when they throw it, it just sticks on you. Yeah. And I just had a lot, the tears are welling up now with me, because I've had some just little things. They're not anything major, but we're not watching the news right now.
Yeah.
Mark will turn it on for just a minute to see if there's anything that we need to know about, but we've been turning it off. Going to the store has been upsetting a couple of times lately, because there's a weird energy floating around.
Yes.
So we just need to be having our faces toward God, doing what He's put in us to do, doing it with a joy and a passion, cultivating a sense of joy, enjoyment, and in the midst. There's a scripture in Nehemiah, I don't mean to get preachy, but I think it's in Nehemiah, and it talks about when the Babylonians had come in and they were in captivity, and it said, keep planting gardens, keep having weddings and enjoyment, keep doing your everyday things in the midst of your captivity. Don't stop doing those things. And so I think that's just key for us right now too, to just cultivate joy. Grace is one of our cheerleaders. Denise, Norma, all you guys are such joy givers. Denise?
I quit. I stopped on Facebook there for a while. I just got fed up because people want to flood it with junk.
Yeah.
And then the virus hit, and people were so down and so upset. And the reason that I started posting again is because that one image that I put up, it may not be that great, but it's going to take the place of one bad image, that someone puts up. And to be perfectly honest, people like Mr. Chu better than they do me. And that's okay. Yeah. But he makes people smile. Mm-hmm. And whatever effort we have, even though if the accomplishment is measured from 1 to 10, even if I'm only a 3 today, at least it's nothing negative. It's something positive to put out there, and it's something else for people to look at and to find a place of just a sigh, just a sweet sigh. That's all I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
Yes, it's working. It is working. I put that baby, pictures and video of that baby out there. And when I log on and I see your artwork, that's what I look for. And that's what I've kind of developed a little cocoon on my Instagram and my Facebook of artists and people who are putting good spiritual things out, not controversial things. And I understand that there's emotion, and I'm very respectful of people and needing to make a change in the world. And I want to respect them. I have to guard my heart right now, because I'm in a little bit of a crisis trying to take care of these children. And so I have to guard myself with what I need, today. And so
a person can only take so much.
Yeah. Yeah,
and you have to pull away from it.
you do.
Well, it's really amazing. This stuff can really affect you if you get absorbed. And I know that I had to step away for a minute, and oh my goodness, it's just too much
Yeah.
with everything that we've gone through already. Even with the storms, the
Yes.
earthquake, and then COVID, and now this whole thing coming.
Yeah.
It's just a lot of stuff, and it can be overwhelming. So we do have to pick and choose what we take in and what we can, take and what we can't take. But while I'm talking, I sure like to know what that Bible study is that Christy, that you're involved in. 'Cause
I'll send the link in my next little newsletter in case anybody wants to. We're doing it on Monday evenings from 6:30 to 7:30.
Yeah.
Right now I changed it, and it's a sweet group, a small group. I've got some people from up north, my family members that one is a brand new believer, and just it's just sweet, right? We're fixing to start we've been on this Sacred Yes, but we're fixing to start a thing called getting out of your head, or something like that, getting out of your head, and the battle that takes place up here, and how to redirect your thoughts and change that that battle that happens up there with how we're thinking about things. So I'm looking forward to that. It's a free study by the ladies. I'll put the link in there, and you can go online and you can download the materials, and you can watch the little video clip, and then we're having about an hour of discussion about it starting in June 22nd. So I'll send that out in case anybody's interested in that. So I think if you guys are still staying quarantined, I think, a lot of us are needing that human interaction. And so I've been really valuing my Al-Anon meetings, my Bible study time, and my art class time. So I need to do the Inspire group again too. But
for anybody that's interested, I'm doing starting June 15th, and I did this a while back, right before the COVID got so bad. Osher Center in Nashville does Zoom Tai Chi classes for every level, and mine's in a chair, but it's still something. But I really enjoy it, and the woman that does it I did one-on-one classes with her for a while, and it was nothing like I thought it was going to be, because I had tried before. But anyway, that's there for anybody that's interested.
Hey, Christy,
send me that link, Janice, and I'll post it in my recap of today, if you don't mind.
If you just Google Osher Center,
okay,
that's OSHER.
Okay.
Nashville. They're a part of Vanderbilt.
Okay.
And Tai Chi is not the only thing they offer. Their prices are reasonable, and they offer Tai Chi every different level, yoga every different level, and pain management classes, just a lot of different things. They've been very beneficial for